bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first, so let's get started. Thank you to all those who tune in. As always, I want to reiterate, I talked about this yesterday, but I want to reiterate, this is not a breakdown or an analysis of an individual player, but of a concept that I just can't understand why NFL teams don't understand. So Anthony Richardson, we all found out the news yesterday. He was benched in favor of Joe Flacco. And then today, the Colts did this odd thing where they even doubled down, and Shane Steichen came out and said, hey, he's not just the starter for this game. Joe is going to be our starter going forward, which felt weird. And then the more I thought about it, no, this just feels like the Indianapolis Colts or bad run NFL franchises. In anything in life, if you're going to commit to something, commit to it. Have a plan, follow through, and don't back out because, it just looks bad right off the rip. Especially if you know it's a long-term project. It's not something simple. It's not something quick. It's not, tried this. It's a quick idea, quick solution, doesn't work, boom, back out. I have congratulated teams like the Philadelphia Eagles or the San Francisco 49ers who've been able to say, hey, you know what? This didn't work. Boom, this contract's not there. All right, cut the guy, move on, eat it for 1 year. Boom. Same thing the Broncos doing with the Russ contract. Doesn't work. Boom, move on. If you were the Indianapolis Colts, you drafted Anthony Richardson in the top 5 2 years ago. When you drafted him, he was a project quarterback. The entire argument and idea around him for even going that high was that his potential, because of his physical abilities, was as good as anyone in the draft. That year, the following year, pretty much put it up against anybody. He could run. He had a cannon of an arm. He had these special flash plays that stood out on film. But he was clearly a project. So if you draft a quarterback who is clearly a project, you as an NFL franchise have to understand, where are you? You are in the developing young project quarterback phase of your franchise. I say this all the time. A lot of the reasons that a lot of these guys don't make it, and a reason why a lot of teams end up in this unfortunate loop of inconsistent winning, is because their owner, their general manager, and their coach aren't on the same timeline as far as winning. The coach needs to win now. He's not interested in the general manager taking these project type picks. General manager needs to win now versus maybe the coach is trying to develop. And then the owner, who just, he gets to do what he wants. He owns the team. He pays the bills. Is just impatient, crazy, or irrational. And that's where I think the Colts are at. Their owner is impatient, crazy, and irrational. Because I like Shane Steichen as a head coach. I do. I'm not as familiar with the general manager. I'm not going to really quote, how good or bad he is. He has gotten guys like a Quentin Nelson. If Anthony Richardson did develop, he's gotten a Michael Pittman. So he's, I believe, with who the overall talent on the roster, general manager, good enough at least. Especially when you have someone like Shane Steichen as your head coach. But I do firmly believe the decision to bench Anthony Richardson was a call from Jim Irsay, who wants to be back in the Peyton Manning era where he's winning 10, 11, 12 games every single year. His quarterback's throwing for 4,000 yards. He has one of the best offenses, one of the best teams in the National Football League. He wants to go back to Andrew Luck those first couple of years, winning 11-plus games, making the playoffs. That's what he believes. He believes that the Indianapolis Colts are one of the best franchises in sports, not just that they were lucky to get two supremely talented quarterbacks. So you draft Anthony Richardson top 5 because you see the splash plays. You see the things that he could be. Anthony Richardson didn't have a lot of college starts. And you only go 10 starts into his NFL career before you decide to say, oh, pull the plug. Trey Lance, they pulled the plug on in San Francisco, but San Francisco has a true title contending roster, and again, they lucked into Brock Purdy, who has been able to stabilize them as a 7th round pick. The Indianapolis Colts do not have near the amount of talent that the San Francisco 49ers had, nor are they going to luck into Brock Purdy. They're deciding to start 39-year-old Joe Flacco. Again, if you're going to do something, commit to it, especially if you know it's long term. If you have a child, you don't say, oh, 2nd grade, he's not that smart, he's never going to be smart, forget college, get him ready for McDonald's. A child raising a human being is a long-term project. Trying to develop a franchise quarterback from a guy who is super raw, who needs the snaps, who needs the experience, is not a 10-game process. And again, while we like Quentin Nelson, while we like Michael Pittman, while we like some of the things they have on defense, some of the guys they got on the offensive line, this is not San Francisco where you're listing off 6, 7, 8 all-pro guys who need to win now while they're in their prime. The Colts have a good roster, not great. A couple of great pieces, but a good roster, not great. And again, you committed by bringing in an offensive head coach who maybe the problem is Shane Steichen did too well last year. Maybe the problem is Shane Steichen overachieved with what he had at quarterbacks because Anthony Richardson got hurt, that the assumption in Jim Irsay's mind was, oh, once we get Anthony back, he's going to be great. He's a project quarterback. Listen, everybody wants Josh Allen until it's time to really have Josh Allen. Everybody wants Lamar Jackson until it's time to have Lamar Jackson. What does that mean? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. You could argue the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. All were treated as projects and guys to develop. Mahomes and the Chiefs, they had Andy Reid. They believed in what he could do, what he could teach, and what he could be as an offensive play caller and a coach. And they let him sit, and they practiced him hard, so that when he came out a year after watching Alex Smith, a year after going through all those hard practices, they ramped him up and treated him as a project quarterback, because Mahomes coming out of college was a raw project quarterback. He had the arm, he had the flash plays, but they weren't great at Texas Tech. He did basically what every other Texas Tech quarterback did. But what was the difference between him and Graham Harrell? Graham Harrell was small, not the arm strength, clearly a product of his system. Mahomes, you saw the arm strength, you saw some of the athleticism, you saw the ability. He was a project. Kansas City treated him as such, and because their owner wasn't some, lack of a better word, loony whack job, they let him develop, they let him turn into what he is, and that's rewarded them with Super Bowls. The Ravens and Lamar Jackson. They drafted Lamar Jackson, who was a project coming out of Louisville, even though he won a Heisman, even though he had success in college. And when they committed and said, hey, this is going to be our guy, they changed the offense for him. They changed the way that they played. They practiced him hard, taught him, changed, adjusted to what he does well. And they've been rewarded with a multiple MVP, about to potentially win his 3rd MVP level quarterback, and coming off a trip to the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen. Again, go look at Josh Allen's rookie stats. Look at, really, because Mahomes doesn't have rookie stats because he didn't play, go look at Lamar's rookie stats. They're not going to blow you away. Go look at Josh Allen's rookie stats. They're even worse. But Buffalo didn't say, oh, well, we have Josh Allen, but we've also got a LaShawn McCoy, and we've got some of these other pieces here on defense, and we're ready to win now. No. They understood they had a project. They understood they had a guy that needed reps. They understood they had a guy that needed to be on the field, get the reps, get the live game action. He needed to be out on the field in order to develop, practice him hard, play him hard, all that stuff. And that has rewarded these three franchises whose owner didn't step in and go, oh, you know what, need to get rid of this guy, need to bench him, Flacco gives us better for. Like, what are you getting long-term by playing a 39-year-old Joe Flacco? A couple extra tweets on Sunday that we're all shocked Joe Flacco can still throw for 300 yards. And shout out to Flacco. He's been great for literally every team except the Broncos post the Ravens. Because why wouldn't he be? But their owners, these other owners didn't step in. These other coaches and GMs understood what they had. It wasn't a guy. They didn't draft a guy and say, hey, they didn't draft the project guy and go, oh, he's got to be great immediately. They drafted the project guy and treated him like a project. They drafted the project guy and said, you know what? This is what we're going to work on. We're going to improve on this. We are going to embrace this. We are going to make this the system. And those are now your top three quarterbacks in the NFL, arguably. And what do the Colts do? They draft Project Anthony Richardson. Don't really give him enough time with his head coach. Unfortunately, last year was due to injury. This time, benching him only after the 7 games. And he got hurt even then. Don't want to give him enough time. We'll go to Joe Flacco, see how it works. They're not going to be good enough. They're going to be drafting. You notice this? You could say what you want about teams that have, you have to somewhat luck into great players. And to some degree, that's true. There's the obvious ones we could all talk about. But the teams that consistently, where their draft position is a clear sign of ownership and stability. The teams that draft 1 through 10, go look at them right now. Who's set to draft 1 through 10? And it's traditionally the same teams. The Panthers, the Jets, the Saints. And unless they get their generational guy, which is either by luck because they get him late, or they got to take him first overall in case, like, what is Carolina without Cam Newton? What are the Jets without, take your pick when you think the Jets were good. These teams traditionally that are drafting towards the top, they're structurally, as an organization, they're just not good. Again, Jim Irsay thinks because he had Peyton Manning and because he had Andrew Luck, he had this unprecedented run of essentially 25 out of 26 years where the Colts were an elite franchise. They weren't. They were 2 all-time talents at the position doing a whole bunch of covering up for an owner who's not a football guy but wants to be a football guy. Coaches, take your pick on how you feel about them. And again, I like Shane Steichen as a coach, but then let Shane Steichen coach. You gave him this quarterback. We all remember week one. Week one, Anthony Richardson, you could say what you want about his completion percentage. He might still have the best and craziest throw in the NFL this year. That throw he made week 1, Houston, falling off his back leg 60 yards on a rope to the receiver for a touchdown, is still potentially the craziest throw we've had all year. And that is the talent that you see in Anthony Richardson, and that's why you drafted him. 10 starts? When you know he didn't have a lot of college starts? Look at the teams this year, Jim Irsay. Chicago with Caleb Williams. Washington, Jaden Daniels, and even Denver with Bo Nix. Look at the structure they've put around these quarterbacks. Look at the talent they've put around these quarterbacks. And I'm not saying it's all perfect. And it's probably never going to be totally perfect. But the reality is, Washington got Cliff Kingsbury, paired him with Jaden Daniels. Chicago went out and got talent. Sean Payton essentially handpicked Bo Nix. These guys have all been given structurally a better situation than you've ever given Anthony Richardson. You need to understand that. So, again, it's just insane to me that the Colts are not a good or well-run team, and that's with talent, that's with a coach that I like, but it just goes to show you, similar to another team in the Dallas Cowboys who you could argue that they have talent, you could argue that they have potential, but that ownership and the structural level just breaks a lot of teams down, man. It's insane to me. And it's insane to me that people are going at Anthony Richardson and say, like, oh, well, he didn't produce. He was a project from the get-go. They knew they were going to be in this kind of situation. Oh, man, lots to talk about today. CJ Stroud, and they're playing the Jets. I avoided talking about the Jets, but they do play Thursday night, so I got to put them a little bit. Yankee fans, have some shame. Please stop being stupid. I know it's hard. Yankee fans act normal challenge, as well as power rankings are today. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. I don't care if the Vikings are 5-0. This is a 1,000% to me. This is a coaching story. This is Kevin O'Connell. This is Brian Flores. This is a really cool story for Sam Darnold, but it's still Sam Darnold. And I'm just not willing to put them much higher than this because I think the 7th best team in the NFL is probably your cap with Sam Darnold. Now, that's still incredible. Everything they've done to Minnesota this year has been absolutely, without question, incredible. But it's Sam Darnold. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody that's joining in. Beauty of live TV or doing live on YouTube is sometimes your animals just get into it in the background. So, that happens. So, Jets, Texans, Thursday night football. I don't have a lot to say about the Jets. I think the Jets are a bad football team. I was very clear about that during the preview show Tony and I did. I haven't been a big believer in this version of the Jets-led Aaron Rodgers either year. Obviously, last year you have the disqualifier because he got hurt, which in long run might have actually saved Robert Saleh's job because if they were this bad last year, he definitely would have got fired. We all know the story. I think the Jets are one of those teams that they're just waiting to be bad enough where they start trading guys off. I think Quinnen Williams has potential to be traded. I think Mike Williams has the potential to be traded. I also think there is this, don't be shocked if the Commanders offer multiple first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. I don't think this is being talked about enough. I'm probably the only person I feel like I've heard say this, and I know it sounds insane, but there's going to be a team that makes a push, and Washington's defense probably feels that they'll be tremendously better if they had a corner like Sauce. This isn't argument Sauce versus PS2. Sauce, one of the best corners in the game. Reputation is such. The Commanders, if you're not going to pay Jaden Daniels for a handful of years, that's the kind of trade you do if you truly feel like you are going to be this great with him consistently. The Bears are kind of in an interesting situation because they almost front-loaded Caleb and said, we're bringing in Keenan Allen now. We just signed DJ Moore, signed Komet. Like, they already kind of front-loaded him with talent, whereas the Commanders are going to do the more traditional approach of let's get guys while our quarterback is cheap, and why not get someone like Sauce who could be a cornerstone of your defense? But that's what I think of the Jets. I think the Jets are a bad team. I think the Jets have shown they're a bad team, and I think they're just going to be one of those teams that eventually will start having to trade guys off. The Texans are interesting, and that is because I feel CJ Stroud has been good this year. I think the expectation for him this year was great, and this is unfortunate. This is just really the way the media goes. The expectation... We had no expectations of him last year. It was Houston was a dump. Houston wasn't going to be very good. And then him, D'Amico Ryans, turn it around. And now the expectation, you don't really get, once you're good as a rookie, we don't really up expectations from that point. But there is now going to start to be, if you struggle in primetime again, because he didn't play great when his other primetime game when they played the Bears. And if you struggle in primetime against the Jets, a team that most people don't think are very good, against Aaron Rodgers, who is on his way out of the league, a defense that has been struggling, like, if you play bad in your second primetime game, people are going to start going through your numbers. People are going to start evaluating your performances because now your expectation is great. You are expected to be one of the best teams in the NFL coming off the season you just had, bringing in Stephon Diggs. Obviously, Stephon's been injured. Bringing in Joe Mixon. Like, the organization has moved in a way that they expect you to be really good to great. Now, they have had injuries. Again, Nico Collins, who I think still leads the NFL in 15-plus yard receptions, even though he hasn't played in 3 weeks. And Stephon Diggs, unfortunately, tore his ACL. But you've had those guys up until this point. And the numbers have been, and this is going to be the unfortunate part, and this is just, again, how it works. You're going to start getting looked at funny when you have an 86-yard game, a 1-touchdown game, followed by another 1-touchdown game. And that 1-touchdown game came with 2 interceptions. A 0-touchdown game, another 1-touchdown game against the Colts. Like, you're throwing for some yards, you're doing, the normal stuff that you've been doing, but you've already thrown 4 interceptions versus you only threw 5 all of last year. And while it's not realistic for you to have that kind of interception percentage again, people are going to hold that against you. Now, I've had the Texans in my top 5 last couple weeks for power rankings. I have been a huge CJ Stroud fan. I'm not the person to sit here and tear him down, bring him down, etc., especially when you see all the bad quarterback play across the league in general. But when your expectations change, and CJ's have changed, they expect him to be great. They expect him to be really, really good. They expect him to be one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And his reality right now is not only is that expectation and that criticism, all the love he was given last year, they are going to start using some of that against him. And they're going to start looking at you and go, what if he only puts up another 200-yard, one-touchdown game? And what if they either are close with the Jets or they just outright lose to the Jets? Now, the Texans' defense has been even better than I think any of us thought it would be year 2 of DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans is clearly having an impact on that defense. But the narrative around C.J. Stroud, if he doesn't have one of those games, again, he went 23-5 as a rookie. He's at 11-4 right now. But besides the Patriots game, which you would say is his best game, and look, no one's going to, by the time this year is over, no one's going to really care how you performed against the Patriots, the Browns, the Panthers. There's going to be a handful of teams that are so low on the NFL pedestal that people aren't going to care if you threw 3-4 touchdowns against them. They're going to be like, everybody did that. That's why those teams were terrible. So we need this. And I, again, love CJ. Wish nothing but the best for CJ. Man of faith, great player. But this is going to become a part of his conversation if he doesn't start having he needs some of those 3 touchdown, 1 pick games or 3 touchdowns, 0 interception games against either in primetime or against the good teams. So, again, love CJ, but this narrative around him and the conversation around him is going to start changing if we don't get into primetime good games or against other team great games. The other couple of things, we got a lot to talk about today. This I'm going to be really quick about. Yankee fans, can we just not be stupid? Please. I hate that this was even a story for most of the day. Yankee fans, I said yesterday, you need to bring energy, you need to bring excitement, you need to do all these things to help uplift your team that is already down 3-0 in the series and needs that energy because these players are tight, they're stressing, going through whatever emotions they are, because they are the professional athletes, they are the guys on the field. You just need to be energy, not get called for another fan interference and grabbing at Mookie Betts and trying to steal the ball away from, like, this was just stupid. And to the people that were defending this, it sounded equally stupid. This is just, there's a lot of things you can do as a fan in sports, and I mean a lot. I'm not even someone who's against as long as it's not racial or outright slurs. I'm all for the people that, like, at NBA games or baseball games, just throw mad insults at the players. That's what you're allowed to do. When you pay money for these tickets, you are allowed to contribute your opinion, your thought. That's why these guys make millions of dollars. They're understanding of that. And when you're paying to be in this space, you're allowed to talk in that space. So I'm all for it. Trash talk away. Keep the racial stuff out. Keep the slurs out. Keep, that kind of stuff. But all the shit talking is totally fair game in my book. Grabbing the ball, it's literally fan interference, and then you're grabbing Mookie on top of that. It was just, like, you're down 3-0. Like, imagine if you had lost that game. I know there's a bunch of New Yorkers who are claiming, oh, well, we won, it really energized. Imagine if you had lost that game. Imagine how stupid and sore of a loser you would have looked like if that happened and they lose and they get swept in the World Series. And the other thing, to close this out again, I don't want to be here very long. Generally speaking, if every other fan base thinks a decision is stupid, generally speaking, and I'm not talking about a draft pick or a strategy or a head coach hiring, but these little weird one-off things that happen in sports, like how fans react to something or, stuff like that. If every other fan base thinks it's stupid and you're the only fan base defending it, chances are it's stupid. Yankee fans all day today calling in. We've seen the clips on Twitter, going to New York radio. We've seen even like the mainstream guys saying, look at what they did. Man, it's only the New York guys that are defending this. Maybe there's some other idiots out there, but it's really just the New York guys defending this. If you're the only person in the room saying, yeah, this is the way to do it, yeah, this was smart, it's probably not smart. It's probably pretty stupid. And that's what that looked like. That looked really, really stupid. Have some shame, Yankees fans. Have some fucking shame. Last thing here before we get to the power rankings on the next block. I've stolen this line from Chris Carter, and unfortunately he doesn't get enough media appearances anymore, but I want to keep this alive and well because I firmly believe this, and I think this season is showing out to be, this is proof 100%. To the great Chris Carter, one of the Vikings all-time legends, one of the best wide receivers of all time, 99% of guys are system players. And he's 1,000% correct. And this includes, and everyone takes it as an insult, and they're like, oh, system player, he would have done great here, he wouldn't have done great here. Maybe he would have done great in other systems, but he needed a system. And this goes for Hall of Fame players. Chris Carter has said this applies to himself. Look at everything going on in the National Football League this year. Lamar Jackson is on pace to win his third MVP. Lamar Jackson is a system player. Lamar Jackson would not be as successful in a traditional drop-back West Coast offense. He needs the kind of offense and system that the Ravens have in place to play as well as he plays. That doesn't mean he's not great. That doesn't mean he's not special. That does not mean his talent is not spectacular. But he needs a system to thrive in. Let's look inside that same division. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson. Russell, who's been called washed, overrated, every bad word you can think of, played horrible the last 2 years. He did not work in Sean Payton's system, and he didn't work at the end in Pete Carroll's system in Seattle. Mike Tomlin got him. Arthur Smith got him. They have embraced a system that works for Russ, and you see, even though there was all this pushback, and credit to Mike Tomlin for the balls to make this decision, despite all the pushback, they said in this system, Russ is going to be better than even what we've seen from Justin Fields, and they had Justin Fields on a career year track before they went to Russ. You've already seen the difference in the offense, and I understand it's against the Jets and the Giants, not great teams. But do you think they would have scored that many points with Justin Fields, or do you think those games would have been 17-3, 17-10 type of affairs, great defense just makes a play or two, and they win the way the Steelers have won the last 5 years? These last two Steeler wins look different than what they've done in the last 5 years, post-Ben Roethlisberger. That is the system they've allowed Russ to succeed in. Go around the league. Look what Baker Mayfield's doing in Tampa. Look what Sam Darnold's doing in Minnesota. Look at Geno Smith in Seattle these last couple of years. The system that they've built around these guys allowed them to succeed where they haven't had success in other areas. They haven't had success in other locations. Baker had success with Sean McVay. He had success with Kevin Stefanski. He had success now in Tampa. Didn't have his success, though, in Cleveland prior to Stefanski. It matters what system you are in. Now, I would argue if the NFL today, who is truly a systemless player, I don't believe there's a running back currently playing that is a systemless player. You could say what you want about Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey was great in Carolina and then was still great in San Francisco. But you see these things that truly make him great are the Shanahan system, and during his year where he got 2,000 plus yards, I forget the offensive coordinator in Carolina, but a system that's built around him. Derrick Henry, the same thing. I know it's easy to say running backs are systemless because of you're handing the ball or just throwing the ball out of the backfield, but these guys still need to be in the correct system. If you go to receiver, I think there's one guy. I think it's just Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson, any single team you put him on, he is going to be that great. He is going to be the best receiver in the league. Jamar Chase is close, but it's hard to judge some of Jamar Chase's accomplishments because he's had Joe Burrow the entirety of his career. Jefferson has done it with now Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, and when Kirk was injured, other quarterbacks, and he's been phenomenal no matter who's throwing him the ball, no matter what the game plan is. Justin Jefferson is just elite. If you go to offensive linemen, Trent Williams, maybe a Lane Johnson. O-line's a little harder. Again, Trent I do think is still extraordinarily great at his age, with the addition and the help of the Shanahan system. I think Lane Johnson playing on an offensive line with 2 or 3 other Hall of Famers has been incredibly supportive during his time playing. Again, just the majority of these guys, they need the correct system to play, and that's not a knock. That's just the reality of what these guys. Again, Chris Carter said it. I believe it wholeheartedly. He's a Hall of Famer himself, and he said he needed a system. You need guys who will scheme you open. You need coaches that you can work with. You need these certain things to go right because so much of football is dependent upon other players. It's not baseball where you could just be a starting pitcher and you could just have the best stuff in the world and Garrett Cole's going for the Yankees tonight. And if his stuff is just on, it doesn't matter who's batting. It doesn't matter who's hitting for his team, who he's going against. He could just be electric and throw 7 shutout innings. In the NBA, you could just be elite at scoring the basketball, and it doesn't matter who's on your team. You could still just get 30 points. But in the NFL, if your scheme does not help you get open, if your scheme does not allow you these certain route combinations, you're not going to make it. And if your scheme does not allow your quarterback to truly showcase his ability to the utmost level, it's a dependent league. It's really a coach's league. The best coaches get the best results in the NFL. And so this season is it's all over the place. Again, Lamar's going to win MVP. Look at the system he's playing. And Russ is having a bounce back through 2 games. Better, even if it's only 2 games. People didn't think Russ could ever play this well again, ever. So you got to give credit to where credit is due. When we come back, more stuff to talk about, as well as, because it is Wednesday, we got to discuss power rankings. This is HardFoul Radio. primetime standalone games. And while the London games are a little weird because they're not quite as prime time because not everybody gets up that early, especially from the West Coast. It's up at 6:30 in the morning. So it's not quite as big as a Sunday night football, a Monday night football, these other primetime games. Unless you happen to coach for the one team whose owner is an ambassador overseas for the NFL, and your team comes out and looks, while the final score may not be indicative of it, did not play well, your quarterback looks old, threw 3 interceptions, and while your defense did actually do a pretty good job against the Minnesota Vikings, not winning that game, again, when your owner is the ambassador for the NFL overseas, you're Robert Saleh, that's the kind of game that gets you fired. So we are back up. So this comment I think is hilarious. I think it also shows you how crazy it is of how great Lamar Jackson is. So the Broncos play the Ravens this week. Tony and I discussed a little bit yesterday, and I'll discuss a little bit more Sunday morning. Bo Nix said in the interview, in his media today, he said, "Hey, look, I'm super excited to play Lamar Jackson. It's just incredible when you can watch someone, or when you can play against someone that you watched growing up." Normal comment for a rookie to a several-year NFL vet, especially a guy who's won 2 MVPs in Lamar Jackson. There's a 3-year age gap between Bo Nix and Lamar Jackson. This is and I'm willing to clown Bo. I think if he had more time, I think he gave just the generic respectful answer, and it's fine, whatever. But that's all. It's there's a lot of people just like making jokes at it. It's like, oh, he's only 3 years older than you. Like, what are you talking about? It really just goes to show you Lamar is in this super unique stage where he is accomplishing all of these things so much younger than anyone else ever has. It's very similar, and this isn't a one-for-one comp, but just take their ages into consideration. It's very much like what LeBron used to do. LeBron was the first ever to this, or the youngest ever to this, and he was getting so many stats, milestones, accomplishments at these super young ages that by the time LeBron was 26, 27, yeah, there were guys who might have came out of college and were 23 and go like, yeah, man, I used to look up to LeBron. Even though there's only a 3-4 year difference, they've literally watched his career play out while they were still a young adult. It just so happened that LeBron was a young adult during that time too, and Lamar's been a young adult. Lamar at 27, I don't think we give him credit. Lamar, by the time this year's over, could have 3 MVPs and potentially a Super Bowl ring at 27. Like, I don't think we understand just how incredible that is. Like, I don't think we give that enough time to truly sit in, And again, I know we have Mahomes side by side, and Mahomes is also in the same boat. Mahomes is a little bit older than Lamar, but like, that's how long Lamar is. That's how young and how long Lamar has been great. Again, I can give Bo some shit. Yeah, you didn't grow up watching Lamar Jackson. There's a 3-year age difference, all that good stuff. But like, I saw that and I thought that was funny. So from there too, we're going to get into some more Lamar Jackson talk. We have to, of course, go to our step ladder. This is how we rank our top 10 NFL teams here on Hard Foul. And remember, this is not just a snapshot of where we are at in the season. Well, it is somewhat reflective of that. To get all the way up to where the Lombardi Trophy is, you need to also, in my mind, be one of the teams that I think can be here when it is all said and done. So your placement is not just where you are right now or based on your record, but it is based on where I think you can finish in the grand scheme of things. So, with that being said, starting off at number 10, they were number 10 last week. They are number 10 again this week. That is the Denver Broncos. Again, say what you want. And I understand, not everybody knew the names. That's fine. Not everybody knew the talent. That's fine. Everybody wrote off Sean Payton. That's fine. Situation and the informations have changed. This team has generated 20 more pressures than the second closest team. Leads the league in that. This team has the best set of corners in the NFL. PS2, the best corner in the NFL. Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan. She's the McMillan pick. This team offensive line that nobody wanted to give credit. Go look at their PFF grades. Go look at the amount of pressures that they give up. Denver has the highest sack differential in the NFL. That's huge. Teams that have that are teams that go on deep playoff runs. Not saying Denver's going to go on a deep playoff run. They obviously still have a rookie quarterback. The receiver room outside of Cortland Sutton is struggling. In Cortland, even himself has had some fumbles. But they have a running game now consistent with Javonte and McLaughlin. Like, this team has everything that you need to be one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. And the only reason the national media won't give them that respect is because we are still so stuck on, Bo Nix isn't good. Oh, the roster's not good. Oh, this isn't good. Oh, Sean Payton's overset. Information has changed. They are playing like one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. You know, since week 3, you know who has a better record than the Denver Broncos? It's 2 teams. It's the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 5-0. The Broncos are 5-1. Them and the Commanders, best records since week 3. At number 9, and they are slowly working their way out, is the Minnesota Vikings. Again, we all know this story. It's a coaching story. What O'Connell and Flores have done has been absolutely incredible. But Sam Darnold is starting to look more like Sam Darnold. And Justin Jefferson, despite how amazing he is, he can't bail you out of everything. They are going to start, their schedule is starting to get to the hard part. There's another one. I talked about this with the rookie quarterbacks. They're going to start playing more division games, which means the Packers, the Lions, the Bears. Those are harder games. They're going to start playing reflective of their schedule, the tougher part of their schedule. And we're going to see, can you still hide Sam Darnold the way you have? Can you still scheme guys open on offense? Can you still create the kind of pressure against these better quarterbacks? And if you look at Minnesota's defense, go look at the top defenses in the NFL. Minnesota's is showing the first sign of cracking. Go look at the second half of that Green Bay game up till now, where they were great and dominant and scaring everybody and messed up CJ Stroud and messed up the 49ers for those first couple of weeks. These last couple of weeks, teams are starting to crack their code. Out of all the great defense in the league, statistically, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Steelers, the others are still putting up the numbers that they've been putting up. Minnesota is showing the first signs of cracking, but I still, again, the record and the NFC North is just crazy. They still deserve to be in the top 10. They are at number 9. I believe making the debut is the Washington Commanders. So look, I've said this about the Commanders. I didn't buy in. I bought into the Commanders as an idea conceptually, changed ownership, coach, general manager, everything. And it was just, in my opinion, while a lot of turnover can a lot of times be a bad thing, Washington had so much negative to just totally rip, go brand new, boom, uplift the whole place. I thought was a really good idea. I didn't think it was going to be this good this fast, and I still have some concerns with really only one dynamic receiver. Their defense I'm still not sold on, but they're in every single game, and you can say what you want. My issue was long-term consistently what this team is going to look like, and that I have some issues with, but they are in every single game. Dan Quinn is coaching, his situational coaching. Jaden Daniels is playing his ass off. And yes, that Hail Mary is huge because it's not only the difference in being in this power rankings, Commanders versus the Bears, because the Bears would have been in this spot if they had won that game. It's the difference in seeding. If the playoffs started right now and that Hail Mary is the reason the Commanders are there, the Bears would have been in the playoffs. And that's going to be huge because now the Commanders have a real argument. If this is who they actually are, they're going to have a real shot at the 1 seed. So that Hail Mary was huge. Again, I have some reservations about the long term of this team because they are reliant on their rookie quarterback so much versus I do feel like the Bears and the Broncos, they have their defenses especially can be overwhelmingly great to where they don't have to rely on their quarterback having a great game. I know Washington defense played well last game, but I need to see that more and more, and I need to see that Dan Quinn imprint more and more before I'm willing to move them much higher than this spot. But Washington deserves a lot of credit. Hell of a coaching job. My love fest with the 49ers, man. Look, I shouldn't be that impressed by a 49ers win over the Cowboys. They always beat the Cowboys. They always look dominant when they beat the Cowboys. But the reality was this game was probably the least good they looked beating Dallas. Brock did not have a good first half. I still think there's issues. Debo obviously is not 100% healthy. Jennings, Ayuk is gone for the season. Kittle was still great and continued to just ball out on National Tight Ends Day like he does every day. And I still believe in the totality of this roster. but this roster has to get healthy. The Niners don't need to worry about being a dominant regular season team like they've been the last handful of years. The Niners need to make sure when they start the playoffs, McCaffrey's healthy, Jennings is healthy, Debo is healthy, Trent Williams is healthy, Warner, Bosa, Hargrave is gone for the year, Tafunga. Like, they need to make sure this is a team that absolutely, when they get in the playoffs, this is going to be, because they weren't dominant in the regular season, this is going to be the team, the lower seeded team that nobody's going to want to play. Nobody's going to want to deal with the 49ers. Buffalo, man. What else do we need to see from Buffalo? I understand they got smacked by the Ravens, and that's probably the biggest because that was in prime time, and that's the first big primetime game we've seen of them. And we're not going to – this team, watch the national perception change when they played the Chiefs. The Bills have had great success against the Chiefs in the regular season. I understand they've had their postseason losses, but in the regular season, Buffalo's had great success against Kansas City. And if they beat that, and if the Buffalo Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to have a brand new narrative because you're going to really start looking at this team and going, oh, wow. They create turnovers. They play great defense. They have a running game now. They'll have several weeks with Amari Cooper, meaning a proven passing game, an elite wide receiver. Josh Allen has only committed 1 turnover. It's a team that feels like they've been close. They've been one of the elite teams in the NFL, and it almost feels like they're even better now. It feels like this team, what's the weakness? Like, we're going to start asking that, and the national media will really catch on after that Bills-Chiefs game. I'd love to put the Bills higher. I have a couple of reservations. I would like to see a few more weeks with this current version. But what McDermott's doing with that defense, despite all the injuries, what Josh Allen's doing on offense, including Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman coming on, this is a team, expect to see them keep going up, especially for national media attention. They're going to get a lot more once that game's over. At number 5 is the Packers, and this one is another team that, them and the Bills, I think it's perfect that they're on the same ladder, or the same step. These are going to be the two teams, in my opinion, that have the most to improve by season's end. This is still a bunch of young players. Jordan Love's still young. Jordan Love still hasn't played essentially like a full, he's just barely played a full season. And if you want to it's just barely at a full season if you consider the fact they get knocked out. But maybe the most impressive thing about the Green Bay Packers is that they're 3-0 when Malik Willis plays. Do you know what you have to do to be 3-0 when Malik Willis plays? So we like the quarterback. We like the receivers. The defense, with the new defensive coordinator, they're creating turnovers. Their backup quarterback is capable, so they're going to continue to have regular season success when it comes to seeding. They're in a very, very tough division, an extremely tough division. Again, 3 teams from the NFC North are in our top 10, and the Bears are probably 11. Extremely tough. Love the quarterback. Love the head coach. Well, I don't personally. I don't personally love the quarterback, but I really like the quarterback. Love the head coach. I love what they are doing on defense, even if I don't totally love the personnel. This team has a ton of room to get even better. I do struggle, though, with both them and the Bills, putting them over the top 4 teams who I've been saying these are the 4 teams, in my opinion, if you asked me, gun to my head, who could win a Super Bowl, these are the 4 teams I feel could do it. And starting at that is the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. Especially once Nico Collins comes back, this defense, it's getting pressure. They have cover corners. Once CJ gets Nico Collins back, they've got a good offensive line. Joe Mixon running game. They have all of the elements. This is one of the most incredible turnarounds in sports to go 24 months ago from now to where they are now, from first pick in the draft, or should have had the first pick in the draft. Lovie Smith. Texans fans, you just all need to, I know it was crazy when it happened. You all need to go write Lovie Smith the world's biggest thank you letter. Please, he, without realizing it, changed the course of your franchise forever in the most positive direction you possibly could. And all you guys did was yell at him when he did it. You just have to understand, Lovie Smith can see the future, and he saw Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and he didn't trust the Houston Texans ownership to make the right decision and said, look, I'm going to make it for you. We're going to have the number 2 overall pick. So go write Lovie Smith the letter. But again, CJ, Nico Collins, this offensive line, Joe Mixon run game, the defense, which is vastly improved, going to get even better with DeMeco Ryans behind it. lot to like here about Houston. I'm shocked they're not in more people's top 5. I've seen a lot of power rankings, and the Texans, to me, feel like they are ignored. You guys know my rule. I don't feel like just a bad game should knock you out of what I think about you, but I do think 2 can. And the Ravens have 2 really bad losses. The Raiders loss and now the Browns loss. Those are 2 really bad losses. Those are, for the Ravens, for their level of talent, for what their expectations are, those are arguably inexcusable losses, especially because the Browns, you're just better than. And Jameis Winston, while it's a nice story, and we all love the quotes, we all love the videos, Jameis Winston is not a quarterback that should be beating a team like Baltimore. They need to fix the defense, because offensively, they are as good as anybody, if not the best in the league, them and maybe the Lions. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, the RPO. I talked about this with Tony yesterday. It's insane to me that the best play in football this year, which is Lamar, Derrick Henry, RPO, they decided to just totally take Lamar out of the play on that 4th and 1. That was weird. I've given up defending John Harbaugh, so I do clearly think coaching is an issue here, but coaching is also on the defense. Zach Orr, the coordinator, they need to get this defense correct. I think they need to almost just simplify stuff, take a play out of their offenses, like learn from your offense. Your offense got better when you decided, hey, we are going to be Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, run reliant, RPO, that kind of stuff, because it works and no one can stop it. Yes, you have 2 extremely unique and talented players in Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith, but the reality is those 2 guys being great does not mean that you can run your defense with all 11 as if they're all that talented, that versatile. You need to simplify this stuff and let Hamilton and Smith, let them be great in their own right, simplify the rest of this stuff. And if this defense ever catches up or gets back to just being above average, this is easily one of the teams that could win a Super Bowl. Kansas City at 2, man. Look, you have to acknowledge 7-0 in their reputation. I'm aware of that. I also think you have to acknowledge what they've looked like on offense for most of the season. And I don't think the Raiders game was, they broke out of their offensive slump. Mahomes still threw an interception. Didn't look great, in my opinion, for most of that game. But you have to respect the reputation. You have to respect the 7-0. You have to respect that Andy Reid in close games, Mahomes in close games, what they do on 3rd and 4th down. That is impressive stuff. I still don't think this is a team. This is solely off reputation. And maybe based off that Denver's going to beat them in 2 weeks. But neither here nor there. It's, again, the best head coach in football currently going. While he's not playing like it, the presumed best quarterback in football. They do at some point. This defense is going to stop being this great at some point. And I also think their defense, while it's really, at some point, people are just going to start challenging the Chiefs more. A lot of teams are playing them scared, essentially, like they don't want to do certain things, or they're just nervous that, it's Mahomes. Like at some point, Mahomes will struggle so much where teams will stop giving him this ultimate respect, which feels like that has cost other teams games and allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to keep winning. But you got to respect the coach, reputation, the quarterback, second best team in the NFL. And man, I never thought I would say this. The Detroit Lions are the best team in football? I mean, what don't they do well? Offensive line, speed receiver, possession catch, tight end, running game, a quarterback who's on, again, I talk about this, we're going to have to re-talk about the way we talk about Jared, or we're going to have to change the way we talk about Jared Goff. This is his second rebuild, potentially going to his second Super Bowl. Threw for 85 yards, they scored 52 points. And the defense that we're all like, Detroit's defense isn't good enough, and they even lost Hayden Hutchinson. Their defense is allowing less than 20 a game, which for that offense, if that defense continues to allow 20 or less a game, for that offense, you're going to win a lot of games. You're going to blow a lot of people out because they're going to have a lot more 30, 40, even potentially 50-point scores before this season is over. I think they are clearly the best team in the NFL. They are clearly the best team in the best division. Like, again, they're all in this side. It's great. They're all on this side of the ladder. The Lions at 1, the Packers at 5, and the Vikings at 9. And again, the Bears would have been at 11, which would have also put them on that side. This is the reality of the best team in the sport. Coach, culture, O-line, offense. Their defense is better than we want to give them credit for. There's no real. Detroit is going to have to. They're going to have to fuck up horribly for this season to not end with them being in the Super Bowl. Like, I think they are clearly the best team in the NFC. Again, look at even our rankings. Detroit's at the top. Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston, all AFC teams. Then you get to Green Bay and then Buffalo. So 4 of our top 6 teams are all in the AFC. Detroit, I think, is by far and away the best team in the NFC. By far and away, not by far and away, but they are by far and away the best team in the NFC. And they are, in my opinion, clearly the best team in the NFL. With that, we will be back momentarily with some closing statements. Oh, no. Where'd I go? There I am. We will be back with some closing statements. This is HardFoul Radio. Back momentarily. And we are back with, excuse me. Yeah, we are back with some closing words from HardFoul Radio for today, Wednesday, October 30th. So I just saw this and I just totally scrapped what I had, and I just wanted to address this because I had a similar conversation earlier today. So Tua was at the podium doing media stuff, and he said they botched a snap, and Tua's response was, well, I'd like to see somebody do it. You know, it's easy for you guys being fans. 3, sitting on your couch eating chips. This is coming from someone who's 6'9" and didn't make the NBA. This is coming from someone who could not make it in athletic sports. This is coming from someone who got cut from his freshman team, varsity team, and someone who got cut from his JC college basketball team. I want to be very, very, very clear when I say this. This is not coming from someone who feels like he has a privileged position or that I feel I have some, whatever the right is that people feel that they have. You also, and I believe this wholeheartedly, I don't have to do what you do to have a comment or opinion on it. It's your job. I don't have to prove that I could do it as well as you to sit there and say, well, you're not doing it as well as you could or as others who are your contemporaries or in your field. I always go back to politicians, and for the people that criticize politicians on both sides, and they go, well, what when people will defend politicians in this weird manner that I've never understood, and they say, well, what would you do? It's not my job. It is not my job. Part of the reason you are paid so much money, part of the reason that you are in the position in life that you are in, is because you have to willingly accept some of these things that you are in the public's eye and that the public will comment because the public's opinion of you, how they pour into you both financially and with their time is why you are in the position that you are in. If this show is ever big enough where you got thousands of people or millions of people, whatever the number is, and they want to start coming and telling me, hey, your take is trash. Hey, you're not good at this. Hey, you're not that. Again, I got 7+ years on this and I got 201 subscribers as we currently stand. And there's a bunch of people that could say, you're not very good at this. You're not this. They could rip me as much as they want. I put myself out there, and I put myself out there in a way where people are allowed to comment, criticize, and I've heard it. Podcast equipment should cost more. Man, what the fuck are you talking about? Man, that sounds stupid. And I accept that, and I'm aware that comes with what I am trying to do. And that same thing applies to professional athletes, politicians, anyone who is out in the public and earns money by being famous, noted, being in the public area. You put yourself in that space where these things are fair comments. And to shoot back and go, oh, well, you're the guy sitting on the couch eating chips and I'm the professional football player. The guy sitting on the couch eating chips might be an electrician. The guy sitting on the couch eating chips might be a lawyer. The guy sitting on the couch eating chips could be whatever he is, but he is not someone, maybe he is, but for the most part, is not someone who has put themselves and is earning money and is in the position in life they're in to provide for the public. You play a public sport. You have a public job. You put yourself out there. That's why you have access to so many millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars at that. So no, I don't mind when people rip politicians. I don't mind when people rip athletes. I say do it in a constructive way. You can obviously go way overboard and you can make your entire personality ripping athletes, and that's stupid, and I've come on here and said that's stupid. But the idea that, oh, you can't criticize me because what would you do in my position? I'm not in your position. I never wanted to be in your position. Especially if you're someone with all due respect, bro, I don't even think you should be playing the game anymore because of health issues. You scare the shit out of me every single Sunday that you're going to play the rest of your life because of a decision you made, money, family, personal, whatever, because I've literally seen you lose consciousness several times. So don't fire back at the people that literally are the reason why you can get paid as much as you get paid. You are in the public. You are in the public's eye. It comes with the territory. It's literally how this shit works. It's how this economy is funded. This line of the economy, being public, being an athlete, being a politician. You want to be a public servant? And again, professional athletes, professional entertainers, you are a public servant. You are providing a product that the public wants to see. So you are at the mercy, and the public is allowed to speak on you. That's how this works. Yeah, that's all I got, man. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody. As always, this is the show that values time and puts God first. I will see you guys on Sunday.